Back when I started the Triplefour Podcast, we didn't have distributors, hosts. It was an underground operation. Back then, distribution was opening a window and just talking, hoping your neighbors would hear it. That was the distribution. That was the original podcast. But now there's a solution. Anchor FM, free hosting and distribution for your podcast. If you want to start a podcast, you can keep the window closed. It's cold out there sometimes, depending on where you are. I don't know. Anchor FM, you can get the app. You can record directly into it. Touch of a button, you can send that podcast out to the world. So thanks to Anchor FM for being the sponsor of the Triplefour Podcast. On with the show. Hey folks, we got Jacob Gasho on the cast today. The original host, godfather of the Triplefour Podcast. Just wanted to mention real briefly, the Triplefour Podcast is now on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. It's going to be at Triplefour Pod on Twitter, Triplefour Podcast on Instagram, and the Triplefour Podcast on Facebook. Like, subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. Going to be posting clips, fun bits, pictures, whole deal. So get into it. Thanks for listening.
Triplefour. Let's talk about it. Okay, Triplefour Podcast.
Yeah, you said this dude makes a meatwad fucking thing for no reason, and then he says Jim Norrison.
Bob Dylan I find personally obnoxious, but the Beatles destroyed culture.
Oh my god.
I got Elon Musk to smoke weed in my Tesla the other day. That's not even a big fucking deal.
Things are crazy right now. You don't know shit, do you? We really didn't.
You know, you can't always get what you want, but you'll find sometimes that if you try,
You just might get it.
Oh, you get it!
Sup, Fourheads? Welcome to the Triplefour Podcast, episode 38. You're listening to Radio Free Missouri. And with me today is the godfather of the Triplefour Podcast, the Midnight Cowboy to my Ratso Rizzo, Jacob Gasho.
Thanks for the intro, my man.
Yeah.
My man.
Well, you're
Godfather impression.
Yeah, it sounds just like the Godfather.
Just imagine an orange in my mouth going like, "Oh, I'm the Godfather."
Didn't you watch the Godfather trilogy with me for the first time?
Oh my god, yeah. That's when we found out the third one's bloody awful.
I didn't think so. It's fine. It's not. There's some cool parts about it.
It's not the best work by Coppola.
Not Coppola's best.
Not his best.
Coppola
lost that one.
I was thinking, this podcast has come a long way since we started.
I was thinking that same thing whenever you asked me to join again, because we started it.
We started it together.
We started together, but it was the Dan Stewart's brainchild, the brainchild of Dan Stewart.
I feel like it was more your prerogative. Like you.
Really?
That's how I remember it. I definitely have
Shit.
taken it for better or worse. But
how did it start? Maybe we should. Do you remember how it started? Because I guess I don't.
I just feel like
well.
You were listening to more podcasts or something at the time. I mean, and you said you would be interested in doing one, and you had the USB microphone, and we recorded it on your laptop.
Oh, yeah. What did we even... I wonder, did we start off doing that... Do you remember that video called, like, I'm a Leprechaun or something like that?
I feel like that was...
Was that before or after? Oh, after.
I think in the first episode we talked about meeting people. Yeah, I definitely art, but
oh, so it was after meeting people. Okay.
Yeah, so it was probably, I mean, meeting people came out in April 2 years ago, so this is kind of like we'll call it the second anniversary episode.
Oh, I get. And then That's kind of neat. Oh, dude, I just remembered it's April Fool's Day today.
It is.
Gee.
And our
That
screening was called Feast for Fools. Dude, I totally forgot.
Oh!
That was
dude,
yesterday
so
was the second anniversary of that.
Oh my god, that's awesome. And so Meeting People must have not came out until the end of April or early May.
No, it was definitely April. It was probably mid to late April, but...
Okay. You must have been working on it then while we were setting up for the festival.
Yeah, we definitely were.
Okay.
Because it took me something like 3 or 4 months to make that.
Did it take longer than the space?
Oh, yeah, because we shot the space from like November, like late November to mid-December. It took like less than a month to shoot the space.
Yeah. I think it took... Actually, no, we were editing it as we went, so it really didn't take... It probably only took, about a month and a half to finish.
And we shot like 10 minutes every time we shot, you know? Like we shot the first like 7 or 8 minutes of the space one day.
Yeah. I think we had the idea and shot the like initial scenes the same day.
Yeah, we did.
Like, just let's film Jacob for 2 hours eating rice.
Remember, that was the original scene of the idea. Where like it would be so funny if we uploaded 90 minutes of you eating rice to Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that was a fun idea. I'm so glad we didn't end up doing that because the space is much better than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I was just gonna say I legitimately like the space a lot. So I remember there was for me personally there was ebbs and flows of feelings of the space.
Oh yeah.
So I think initially I liked the experience of making it overall a lot. And then when it was finished, I just was excited that it was done and it was cool to see it. And then after I think a few months, I just was like neither here nor there. And then I think at a point I kind of didn't like it that much, but then now I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
I really like it now. Same with Meeting People. Meeting People was a harsher ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Like at one point I really did not like it. but then now I also really like that one.
No,
I like that one a lot.
100%. It was the same way. I remember because every time we finished a scene on the space, we would watch it, the whole cut, and there would be nights where we would be watching it, and I'd be like, "What are we doing? Like, why are we bothering with this?" And then by the time it showed, I feel like by the time we showed it to everybody and it was done, I was like, okay, this actually has some weight. And now, honestly, I think it's like, it is my mark upon the world. Like, I fucking love it, dude. Space is my favorite.
We were so, I think we were pretty lucky to live together at that time. Like our last year, or almost last year of college, and we were both in the same, or at least we had video art together. And then so we both knew we liked to do that sort of thing. And so it really was a clusterfuck of artistic creativity.
Well, I definitely learned more making the space than I did in any film class. Like, I will take that to the bank. Like,
because you had so much experience. It was like on the go experience. Yeah,
like very, very hands-on improvisation of like trying to get things to work, and like using just that one like desk lamp to light everything. And
oh my god, I forgot about that. We had like real ghetto ass lighting.
Yeah, and no, that whole feeling of eventually coming around to it, I think that might be just the process of making something over a long period of time and putting a lot of effort into it, because that's happened with all my movies. Meeting People for sure, and you're right, it was harsher on Meeting People.
I don't really know. I don't understand completely why it was harsher.
I don't
know if it's because yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was kind of it wasn't too out there. It wasn't really that big of an out there idea to make it. But
the ultimate climax of it is a little bit of a fuck off, but in a funny way.
What was the climax again?
Well, just that it was this whole prank on Lewis, and that.
Oh yeah.
It's about you stole my copy of Halo 3 or something. I don't know.
yeah.
But it's a really funny kind of. Definitely, there are some really interesting editorial choices. I feel like we had just watched enough art movies to the point where, like, zooming in after a scene was over, just into space. It was so Tarkovsky.
Yeah. I really like when you put the shooting lasers in our hands at the end.
Yep.
That shit was tight.
And now it's kind of the same thing for my new movie, which has been an insurmountable fucking process trying to finish.
Have you finished it yet?
No, we went to some exclusive info for the listeners. We went to go shoot the last scene, and the weather was so bad we couldn't do it. We had all the people gathered. We were on this location, but it just wasn't gonna be worth it to do because the audio would be fucking ruined by the wind, and it was just bad news. And so now the coronavirus has hit.
Yeah.
A fucking unprecedented global crisis is further preventing me from finishing the thing that took forever to even set up.
Yeah. I haven't released my thing yet because of the coronavirus either. I was going to release it not too long ago, but then now I can't go to school and do it.
Yeah, what were you going to do with your film?
I think I've decided just to put it on YouTube. I don't think I really care too much about doing a film whatever it's called.
Festival.
Yeah, film.
A film
Come
planet.
on, it's right there on my tongue. Yeah, film festival. Yeah, I don't think I care too much about that. Professionally, I don't care much about it. Oh, I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
Or I don't think I did tell you. So, about a week or 2 weeks ago, I was just online on the internet, and
The space reference.
I love saying that so much.
Online on the internet.
and there's this gallery in Wichita called City Arts, and there's just a reference email, just like, hey, if you want to have a show, you just email this person. I'm like, oh shit, I'll just give that a go. And I heard back like literally an hour later asking me about what I wanted to do for my show. And then like a couple days later, I went down to Wichita to have a meeting with the artistic director.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a solo show at this gallery.
That's pretty sick.
I know, it starts in September, and I have to make like 10 more paintings or something.
That's cool.
I have like 8 or 10 right now. But then now the coronavirus is also preventing me from working on that show.
So are you... Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask you was, like, how is the virus affecting your lifestyle? I mean, you were kind of socially distanced to begin with because you're out there on the farm, but...
I know.
You're you don't have to work at school anymore, right? Because the campus
I don't have
is closed.
to work at school. I don't have to. I mean, I went into work for the church today just because I thought I had to do something. So I only go in there once a week, but the rest of the week I'm home, and it's fucking awesome. I love social distancing. And yesterday, I felt sad that one day it's gonna end, and I'll have to go back to work because I'm getting so much done. I'm getting a bunch of art done. I'm getting a lot of music done. And it's just a great time for me personally.
That's how I felt at first, and now I feel insane.
Oh, dude, I feel the opposite of insanity.
You feel sanity.
Well, because part of it is I'm still getting paid from both of my jobs, and so I don't really have to worry about that.
I miss being places, and I definitely car
Double trouble.
Yeah, I don't know. I miss going to the park, and I miss being I haven't been able to hang out with my friends other than virtually doing this podcast and playing some video games and stuff online. And I recently started going for a run in my neighborhood because I was doing that at the park, and I never did it in my neighborhood because it doesn't feel as peaceful for some reason. Do you live in a residential neighborhood, kind of just like cookie cutter houses? Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that?
Yeah, I walked outside the other day when it got sunny for the first time in a while, and it looked like the opening of Blue Velvet. And when like white picket fences and blue skies and guy driving by on the fire truck.
Yeah. Isn't it strange how depressing that can get sometimes?
Oh yeah. Well, this whole social distancing has really made that even more apparent than it already was to me.
I think I don't feel that as much because I live so distanced away from that, and the place I live in is so unique. And the guy next door or across the street that Barb always talks shit on, he recently started talking to me, and so every once in a while he'll just jabber away at me, and that's kind of fun.
That's kind of fun.
That's kind of he'll stop me. He'll drive by as I'm walking, and he'll stop his car. And yesterday he just said, "You like morel mushrooms?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're all right." And then he was like, "Well, I'm going to a bonfire. Who knows what that's gonna be? I'll see you later." I'm like, "Okay, see you, man." And he just will say random bits of information at me, and then leave.
You say mortal mushroom?
Oh no, morel mushroom.
Morel mushroom.
Yeah, there's these sort of mushrooms that supposedly taste good. I haven't had them before though.
But you said they're all right to this guy.
Yeah, I just lied. I do that. I do that sometimes. You just lie to kind of like get by with the conversation because you don't want to go through the hassle of being like, "Oh, what's that?" Or "No, I haven't tried that." Or
you know what?
I do that constantly.
Yeah, no. Or when you're on the other end of it, that's an interesting experience when you can tell somebody's lying.
Dude, I think I laughed inside. I laugh inside. Because I know what they're doing, and I'm not going to question them because
Like, have you ever name dropped something that you know somebody doesn't know what it is? And
sometimes I'll do that on purpose.
Yeah, and then they pretend they know what it is, and then you even know. Like, there's this weird transparency. Like,
do you continue with whatever you're going to say, or do you stop?
Well, here's where I'm coming from, because I want to have the faith to feel like people know more than I expect them to. I want that to be the case. And also, I want it to be this opportunity to not be condescending or whatever, or mansplaining or whatever, you know? So, like, if I'm, like, making some point to somebody and I'm saying, like, well, it's a lot like in Tarkovsky's Solaris when, you know, this happened. And then I know that this person doesn't know what Solaris is or hasn't seen Solaris.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, yeah, of course, totally. And then, like, I want it to be a positive experience because now they've heard somebody talk about it. So at least they're aware that it exists. So there's something to be gained, I guess. But
that's an interesting way to do it.
But I never thought of it. It is funny to know that I know they're lying. They've never seen it, but they nod anyway.
Yeah, I will ask. I think what I usually do is I ask, and then whatever if they say no, like they haven't heard of it, I just cut the conversation. I'm just like, oh, never mind then.
Oh, never mind. And then it's just silent for a minute.
Yeah, it's just usually kind of silent, and I continue eating or grab my dick or whatever.
I think I kind of picked that habit up from my friend Andy Erdrich, if he's listening, you know Andy.
Shout out Andy.
He knows so much about music. He's got an encyclopedic knowledge of music, in my experience. So he will name drop people, and I think he just genuinely, expects that if somebody doesn't know what it is, they'll ask or be authentic about if they know that thing or not.
Yeah.
And so I've always tried to be the same way, where like just having good faith that it's being a beneficial or positive way of talking about something.
I should probably look at it more that way, because in the past and presently, what I still do is I just assume they don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to sound like a pretentious asshole. And so
yeah,
I usually just cut it off.
Well, if you know what you're talking about and you care about it, then I think there's nothing pretentious about it. And
yeah, see, that's what I should probably look at it more that way. It's probably a bit healthier.
And this is kind of, I also apply this concept to when people mispronounce things, especially at the restaurant I work at. So like, penne pasta, right? Penne noodles. There we have a pasta on our menu. It's called Creole Seafood Penne. And it happens so often for no fucking reason that people, they look at it and they're like, I'm going to have this, the Creole Seafood Panini. And you're like, it sounds like something's broken in their head.
Dude, panini is such a constantly used word. I don't know how anyone would mistake it with penne.
Two completely different things, too. It actually happens so often that people order that not realizing what it is, and then they get it, and they're like, isn't this supposed to be a sandwich? And I'm like, nope, penne pasta.
Oh my god, do they eat it or do they take it back?
Depends on how awful they are. Because if they're not awful, then they will realize that they're the dumb one and eat it. But here's what I do.
Right.
This is what I do to circumvent the situation that applies to the same concept we were talking about. So when somebody's like, I have the Creole Seafood Panini, and then I repeat it back to them as if that's what they said the whole time. So I'll be like, oh, the Creole Seafood Penne? Sure. And then...
Oh, that's clever.
Of course, the Creole Seafood Penne. And then they know that they said it wrong, but I'm acting like they said it correctly.
Wow, that's some real psychological shit right there.
I know, because they can feel bad internally and have the slight faith that maybe I didn't notice. But oh boy, did I notice.
Or maybe they think that you're saying it wrong and they're still expecting a panini when you come back.
Yeah, that's when it gets really bad.
Yeah, it's a whole mess. They get the management, they want their money back, they leave, they shit in your car.
Yeah, they broke into the employee parking lot. They keyed me.
They keyed you? I've never been keyed in my life.
I haven't either, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't care that much unless it was really bad.
No. Yeah, I think that's all like an old man thing. Not old man like elderly man, but like an old man ideology where if you have a car and it's keyed, you have to be upset.
This brings me to another point of philosophy, because you read Catcher in the Rye, right?
Yeah, I read it once.
Oh, also, this is the segment, A Moment for Literature. A Moment for Literature. Master Lemonnion requests your presence in the foyer now.
Oh, shit, I didn't know there was a segment. Okay, cool.
I've developed... well, since I mentioned Catcher in the Rye, it's the segment now.
So when you mention something, there's a segment?
Well, when I announced that the segment is beginning. So I said Catcher in the Rye, then I said this is Moment for Literature, and then the theme song plays, and now we're in it.
Okay.
But anyway, so Catcher in the Rye. We were talking about cars. When I read Catcher in the Rye, it took me a while before the book clicked for me. And I remember very specifically that there was one passage in the book. There's a car. There was a passage in the book about how he didn't understand why people cared so much about cars.
I remember this.
Did I already talk about this? I think maybe I did.
Maybe you mentioned it, but now I do remember slightly or vaguely that scene in the book.
But that sort of non-materialistic, cynical mindset, I think, is what made the book click for me, because I kind of felt like I could relate to that perspective, at least at the time that I was reading the book.
When did you read it?
When I was 16 or 17.
But that's like when I read it too.
Yeah.
I think that's the sort of audience it's made for.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But that guy, he might be still alive, but I think he just lives alone in a fucking log cabin or something.
Oh,
so I watched the J.D. Salinger.
Salinger, yeah. No, I'm pretty sure he's dead.
I watched a documentary of him, and that's like, at the end there was one photo of him.
Yeah, he died. He died 2010.
I still think 2010 is not too long ago. That's weird.
I know. It was 10 years ago. That's
10
crazy.
Fucking years.
Crazy.
Was it 2010 when the Aztec stuff's going to end, or was that 2012?
That was 2012. Fucking idiots. I'm starting to think they were right. Maybe it didn't.
They got the date wrong?
No, it did end. It just ended spiritually. You ever think about
spiritually?
If the rapture happened and just nobody was saved?
Oh, yeah, like This Is the End. The movie This Is the End actually was real, but we just didn't really see, or no one was saved, or the blue lights are kind of invisible, so you don't see the people getting sucked up.
Yeah, This Is the End. That's my...
I just watched that movie. That's why it's in my head.
Okay. I was going to say, that's my new religious text. I compare it.
Yeah. I watched that. So I watched it last Saturday. It got me kind of thinking, really, about the idea of heaven and shit, because the heaven in that movie, this is a moment for film, kind of.
A time for films.
Oh.
It's called Time for Films.
Time for films. Parasite. Midsommar. Jean-Luc Godard. Robert Eggers sucks. This is the Time for Films theme song. It's over.
Time for films. It's the idea of heaven in that movie is you get sucked up when you're alive, and then, or I guess in the movie you're alive. I guess before that you would die and go to heaven, and it's just this giant party, and then whatever you think of you can get. And I was wondering, eventually that would get so boring. Like you couldn't really think of anything you would want after a while. It would take a little bit before that would happen, but eventually you'd just be like, man, I can't really think of anything, and I'm tired of all these people partying. I don't know if I want to be here anymore. Like, you don't know if you'd want to be in heaven for that long, because it'd be eternity. You have to be with all these people.
Well, that's the concept of the Talking Heads song, Heaven.
Oh, I don't know if I've heard that song.
He says, Heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. Everybody's trying to get to the bar. They play your favorite song. They play it all night long.
Oh, that's kind of... I gotta listen to that song. That's cool.
Listen to it again. It's on Stop Making Sense, it's the second song they play.
Is that the album with the heads?
No, that's Remain in Light. The movie is Stop Making Sense. That's what I meant. But it's on the album Fear of Music.
Oh, that's the red one, right? With the green letters?
No, that's their first one.
Shit.
It's their second... No, it's their third album, Fear of Music. That's the one that's got kind of like a gray, black kind of cover. Good point of connection for both Moment for Literature and Time for Films. I read As I Lay Dying.
Okay.
And then I watched the James Franco movie adaptation of it.
I've only seen the movie. I've never actually read the book.
Oh man, you got to read the book, dude. You would love Faulkner's writing.
So it's a pretty good book.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult in some ways because not only does he use a lot of old-timey Southern words, but it's also it's told from the perspectives. Each chapter is a different character's perspective.
I remember I have actually read it because I remember that's how it's set up. It's just it's a different person each chapter talking about what's going on.
Right. The movie was like, I guess it was, I appreciate the effort, but it's kind of one of those deals where the book is so much better because of the way it's written. So it would be really hard.
And I feel like the story, at least the book, when you're reading it, and because of that sort of format, it becomes really personal because it's you and you're just with the book. And with a movie, I feel a bit separated sometimes. But in that book, since it's like you're almost like talking to each different narrator, so it becomes really personally psychological in that sense.
Yeah, you're you're in the head of each character.
And the movie, you're just watching what's happening, so you're kind of divorced from the reality there.
Yeah, and since the story in that book is not necessarily like super fucking entertaining blockbuster action-packed thing.
Yeah.
Kind of difficult to adapt.
What I heard how he wrote that book was I think it was in spurts. Like he would just get fucking wasted and just start writing away without any sort of plot line. I think it only took him 8 weeks or so to write that book.
Yeah, something like he would write it between like midnight and 4 a.m. over the course of a few weeks.
I didn't know that. That's
and
nuts.
He said he didn't change anything. Like he just wrote it the way it is. Yeah.
Whoa.
If that's true, it's nuts.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
But yeah, no, I really like the book. But I've started reading The Sound and the Fury, which is another Faulkner book. And that one's even more difficult because it's similar where it's told from different perspectives. But it's only 3 or 4 chapters. And each chapter is like 100 pages long.
Oh my god.
And the first one is from the perspective of a mentally challenged man.
Whoa.
And he has no concept of time. So it's like moments from different decades and different parts of his life with different characters, and they're all sort of mashed together. And the only way it's easy to tell which, I guess you have to kind of get a feel for it after a while, but it's easy to tell which sections are different time periods, but which time periods they are very difficult to discern, because there's also 3 sets of characters that have the same name. So there's 2 Quentins, there's 2 Jasons, and there's like there's another set that I'm trying to remember, but yeah,
god damn,
it's nuts. And since
I wonder,
yeah,
well, I wonder if he did that book in the same format as I Lay Dying, I wonder if he just was writing shit down, and then it just so happened that 2 Jasons kind of came about. Like maybe he was thinking it was one Jason, but then like when it's all put together, it kind of becomes more than one character because of the crazy shifts in stories.
Well, the only way to tell the differences between them are, so like the one Jason is it's about a family, and the one Jason is the father.
Okay.
And the other Jason is the brother of Benji, the character that's narrating the first section. He also can't speak, so it's hard. It's weird
What?
to say he's narrating because all it is
Oh,
observations.
so it's all in his. Oh
Yeah.
wow, it's all in his head.
Yeah, and since he's doesn't have all of his faculties, he kind of like describes everything in the way that he feels them.
Whoa.
It's kind of difficult, but once you kind of start to understand how it works, it's like really amazing.
How far have you gotten in that book?
I'm about halfway through. I just finished the second section, which is another character named Quentin. And again, there's two Quentins. There's this Quentin, and then there's, in the future, another character that's a girl named Quentin. That's the daughter of Quentin's sister. So it's kind of it's another confusing element in the first
Is
section.
this all taking place within a normal human's life, or is it jumping like hundreds of years into the future and past?
It's like 20 or 30 years around.
Oh, okay.
It starts in a sequence where Benji, the first character, is 33 years old. And then it goes back to times where he was like 3 and times when he was like 7. And yeah.
Whoa.
The second section with Quentin, he's like suicidal. So, and he has a similar problem where he, like, time and memories all blend together. So there are parts where he's actively doing something in the present, but then also thinking about other stuff. And his thoughts and memories will begin and end mid-sentence with other things happening in the present.
Oh my god, that sounds crazy hard to read.
It's not that hard. His is a little bit easier because he is much more intelligent than the other character, and you'll pick up how it works. And also he does the memories in italics. So that helps.
Okay.
But there are pages where he goes through memories and there's no punctuation. Like
what?
There are
my
like
god, those
3 or 4 pages without punctuation. It is nuts.
Jesus fucking Christ, that sounds awful.
It is actually really interesting. Like, I think you would dig it kind of because it is such a sensory, poetic way of just telling a story.
I get so frustrated with reading sometimes. I have to I think it's because it's really hard for me to kind of zone out with reading. Like when I'm watching a podcast, it's really easy for me to zone out and just enjoy it. But with reading, I have to actually try.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of effort for that initial try.
Yeah.
And so a lot of books I read, at least recently, are kind of I like reading this guy named Elmore Leonard. He's a screenwriter, so he's written a few movies and TV shows.
Did he write like sort of like noir detective stuff?
Yeah, and so his books are like that too. And I forgot he has a real famous TV show where it's about some cowboy guy who's an officer. It wasn't True Detective. It was like, I forgot the name of it, but it was pretty popular. Like I think like 5 or 6 years ago. So I read him. Like right now, I'm reading a book by him called Bandits, and this one's actually pretty. They're easy reads, but they're fun. They're fun, cool stories. Like this one is about this guy named Jack who works for a funeral home, and it starts out how he just got out of prison and he's working back in the funeral home with his brother Leo, and he has to go pick up this girl who he thinks is dead, and first he has to pick up this lady who he thinks is a nun, but then finds out she's not a nun, but she's super hot. She's like this really hot nun, or she used to be a nun, but I just found out she is not a nun anymore. But they have to go pick up this broad who's this Nicaraguan chick, and he thinks she's dead, but you find out, I just recently found out, like 60 or 70 pages in, that she's not dead, and that Jack is actually helping her helping the nun and her get her away from this guy, this Nicaraguan guerrilla warfare god guy, who's trying to kill her, and so he's helping them escape her from this guerrilla warfare guy.
Huh. That sounds interesting. I'm looking at his page on Wikipedia. So Justified was the show.
That's what it was. Yeah, Justified.
But he also wrote Rum Punch, which is the book that Jackie Brown was based on.
Oh, I didn't know that. I should read that. I like Jackie Brown enough.
And Get Shorty, the movie with...
That looks really good. I haven't seen the TV show, though.
Oh, it's a movie with
movie.
John Travolta, Danny DeVito.
Netflix recently just did a TV show, Get Shorty. That's why.
Did they really? Huh.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I don't know. The book was really good, though.
They made a sequel. There's a sequel to Get Shorty called Be Cool. That is one of the fucking worst movies.
Yeah, the book was pretty cool. The book was decent, but the movie. So what's the movie about?
It's like,
I wonder if it's about the book or if it's the same thing as the book.
Well, John Travolta's character, because he's like a mob enforcer or something. He tries to get into like the music business.
Okay, so it's the same thing as the book.
Yeah, and then like Vince Vaughn becomes a rapper or something. It's fucked up.
Yeah, so in the book, I forgot the main character's name, but yeah, he's a mob guy who, I think at the end of Get Shorty, he made a movie in Get Shorty.
Yeah.
Or I guess at the end, it's him driving away from the set about to make the movie, something like that. And then in Be Cool, everyone knows him from the movie, and then somehow he gets into the music business because he wants to help this girl become a star. And then she becomes kind of too big for her britches, and he leaves her. And then there's a nice little sexual relationship between him and this other character that's kind of nice.
It's kind of nice.
I'm not gonna lie, I love when there's sex scenes in a book. I don't know why. I get a real kick out of it. I don't like go crazy with it, but in my head I like it.
See, I would probably be too cynical for it. I would be like, this is just some nerd writing about what he thinks sex is like.
Oh, I've never read a full porno book. I always think of like those fucking lame romantic books where there's this hot guy who has like an 8-pack.
Yeah.
And fucking
50 Shades of Grey.
Spiked 5th grade. Yeah, like 50 Shades of Grey type bullshit. And or he's wearing a cowboy hat with no shirt on for whatever reason. I always think of those that are like what pornos are like, porn books.
Grocery store novels.
Yeah, grocery store novels. I mean, regular pornos are like that. They're just over the top acting. Just with videos, you get to see this stuff, and so it's more fun. But in a book, you have to actually read it, and you're like, I just want to get to the goods. Get to the goods. Yeah.
We're still vaguely in time for films. Have you watched any movies?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about that. Yeah, so I watched the last real good movie I watched was Jim Jarmusch's goddamn, what's the name of it?
The Dead Don't Die?
No, I did watch that. I think like 7 or 8 months ago, but like even more recently, I think a couple weeks ago on Canopy, it was it's called Dead Man or Dead Men.
Yeah.
With Johnny Depp, and that might be. I think it has potential to be my favorite movie of his. I really enjoyed it.
I watched that at one point, but I was like kind of wasted, so
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't.
Because some of his movies are so slow.
Yeah.
That you can't watch it real late at night if you're tired because you're gonna fall asleep.
Yep. It was difficult, but I want to watch it again sometime.
With I think it's Tarkovsky. Is Dolores the one that kind of seems like a space odyssey?
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched that together. I don't know if you've seen it again, but when I watched it with you, I fell asleep a few times.
Yeah, it's fucking way longer and slower than it needs to be. I wasn't a fan.
Is his other movie called The Stranger or Stranger?
Stalker.
Oh, Stalker. I've heard a few. My friend Zach told me that's pretty cool. I have yet to see that.
Yeah, that one's cool. It's also kind of slow and like kind of creeping and crawling, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's Tarkovsky's deal.
Yeah,
he likes to be slow and creepy crawly.
It's never been my taste.
Well, his movies are so goddamn long. So if it was a bit more slower, but maybe cut out an hour, I could handle it.
Yeah.
But 3 hours? No.
Try and justify that to me. Fucking 3-hour movie. It's very rare.
Awful.
Very rare that it's justified.
Was Irishman 3 hours?
Yeah, 3.5.
That one was, I've seen it twice now. I thought it was pretty nice.
Yeah, I really like The Irishman. The more I think about it, too, the more I like it.
And even though it's kind of like, it's just whatever his face is, the director's name is,
Scorsese.
It's just another, Scorsese. It's just another Scorsese movie, like a gangster film, but it's still good. It's really good.
See, but it's actually, I feel like the point is that it's not just another one. Because in any of the other movies, there is this sense of like, Goodfellas is kind of like fun, kind of glorification of mobster life, like as far back as I remember, I always wanted to be a gangster, But The Irishman is like, it's the opposite. It's like the end of that, where by the end of his life, he just regrets, or seemingly you hope he's regretful of all the people he killed and the people he passed over and how he hurt his daughter, and it's this sad, slow descent, like, of what was the point, it wasn't worth it,
I definitely did get that sense towards the end. Well, I felt in like Goodfellas, for example, towards the end or at the end, when you see that he's doing the whatever, I felt pretty like I remember asking myself, like, why would that person? I would wonder if that person would be like, man, what was the point of all that if I just had to live alone now in a fucking cookie cutter house and can't have any fun?
Yeah.
I'm sure if I was in that situation and had that same mindset as that mobster guy, I would have just kept on mobbing and
keep on mobbing.
Yeah, because you'd be so fucking sad because you probably live for that hype, that ecstasy of being a mobster, that being anything else would be just way too sad. So you just die being a mobster.
Yep. I think that's also, there's a little bit of that in Godfather 3 too at the end, kind of, because at the end Michael's just alone in his chair. He survived. You'll have to go back and listen to, I want to say, episode 35 of Triplefour Podcast, because Nick met this guy at the casino who claimed that he has been a gangster his whole life and then all of his friends are dead. So you'll have to listen to that.
Dude, that's awesome. Man, I wish I had cool stories like that. That's like, every once in a while, I'll think about how I don't really have much cool stories. Like, I need to live a bit. I need to live longer and see some shit. I have a few little bits and pieces of interesting stories, but not too much. Like that gangster thing. And then that Weedy story. I remember that Weedy story that I listened from Instagram. That's a good story.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people maybe live more interesting moments than they realize, and they just don't have the capacity to
remember
caramelize it in a story. Like they don't know how to package it up and tell it. And that's where we come in.
the Triplefour Podcast.
Triplefour Podcast, the space, meeting people. These are real stories.
I would consider you a pretty good storyteller. Is that a natural gift, you feel like? Or have you worked on that in any way?
I feel like it could be both. I mean, my father was in broadcast news and has always been kind of a public speaker, an orator. He gave this orator. He gave the speech at my sister's wedding and stuff like that. And I feel like he's always just been that guy. He's always been a public speaker, a radio guy, a broadcast guy. So there's a bit of that in it. But also, I think there's a level of just studying that you do with the more you consume. Like, I think that's kind of a part of the drive for me in being a completionist with watching a lot of films and reading a lot of books and listening to a lot of music and different stuff. Is you gain that little bit of storytelling acumen or technique or ideas and styles and things from absorbing other people's stuff and seeing what's been done. And I think a lot of times critiques come from your experience with other things and how you've seen ideas expressed in other people's work or...
Yeah, I remember I was thinking about that just this morning because I was listening to this band, and I don't remember the name of the band, but the song started out really cool, and I heard a lot of elements in the song that sounded unique, and I liked it, but it sounded too much like a Ty Segall ripoff band.
Yeah,
and I listened to that so much. Especially with garage rock. I mean, that's mainly it because Ty Segall's a garage rock guy. But like almost every garage rock band I hear, new one, it just sounds like a Ty Segall ripoff. I'm like, fuck this shit. Ty Segall does Ty Segall, and you do something else. Don't take his dealio because you sound awful.
And then one day you'll hear whoever influenced Ty Segall, and you'll be like, wait, Ty Segall's just ripping off this guy. And then
that's true.
And that's part of the journey.
I kind of enjoy hearing that every once in a while when I think I listen to a band I really like. I'm like, oh man, they're super unique. And then I hear like an older band or kind of doing that same thing. I'm like, holy shit! They took it by purpose or by mistake. But it's like sometimes things just sort of come back around within popular culture or.
Yeah, I don't know. It may not be intentional, probably isn't, but something I definitely noticed in reading Faulkner was I don't know if you remember in Evangelion, but there are those episodes, scenes, sometimes full episodes where they would be in the minds of the characters and they would be just like piecing together all of these thoughts and memories of like, I guess their psychosis or their neurotic ways. You know what I mean? But that happens a lot.
I know what you're talking about.
Reading parts of these books, his style, the way that he like creates that stream of consciousness for his characters reminded me a lot of Evangelion's doing that. And so I can't say that, maybe Hideaki Anno or whatever, that this Japanese anime necessarily was inspired by Faulkner, but I definitely made the connection in stream of consciousness, like technique. So there's like little things like that. And like I said, part of the, just exploring all kinds of different things and making those connections and understanding how certain effects are achieved.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder what makes you like something rather than not like something?
Yeah, I think there's some psychoanalysis that you do on yourself to understand why you like something. Like, my final thesis project in film school was that paper/video on David Lynch's movies.
Yeah.
And so what I had kind of like prescribed myself was that I related to the stories he told because he was describing like normal mundane things and suburban life and subverting it and looking at the darker, sinister aspects about it. And I felt like if I was trying to figure out why I related to that, it was because I feel like I grew up in a pretty mundane suburban environment, and that looking for the more interesting, exotic, sometimes scary parts of it is what makes me excites me, and it's entertaining.
I recently went to visit my parents this past week, and I started rewatching the Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yeah.
And I only got halfway through, but it was weird. My natural reaction to rewatching it. I don't think I could. I mean, maybe I could put it into words. I'll try. But so my natural reaction to rewatching it was almost. I was definitely deeply invested. I was deeply invested in it, but in a way that wasn't kind of like a being entertained way, where you're just sort of out of it.
Yeah.
And just enjoying the out of itness. But with this, I was very deeply invested, and also had the sense of how it's almost reprogramming the way I look at everyday life. Like, I remember after rewatching it, I've been looking at the stove lately and just being like, why is there not a fire that's just like coming out right now? That's a weird thing to think about, but like in David Lynch's stuff, I always feel like I don't quite understand what's going on, but it feels so real. And that's like classic old Lynch, his whole dream thing, because all of his things just feel like a dream, and they're so based in reality, but things are skewed in a sense that it just takes your mind for a ride.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was describing. Like, it's the subversion of the normal.
Yeah.
He's just in touch with that. He just understands it. Because I think in some ways, he's a very regular guy. But he also is so in touch with his subconscious because he's so meditative and he understands his mind. He understands his own mind so well that he can do that.
Well, I don't know if he got into TM, but like in Eraserhead, even that, like if he wasn't into TM then, he still somehow naturally had this gift of expressing how the mind works within its relationship with reality.
Yeah, he's probably on the end of the spectrum of just being a naturally gifted artist, you know? I know he trained with certain painters and stuff, but I think that's just kind of who he is.
Yeah, sometimes you get a little bit jealous. You're like, "Fuck, man, that's so good."
He's a born and living artist, and he never won't be.
Well, it's also interesting about that too, because I think you told me this. He has like 5 or 6 kids, and he doesn't see them too often, or he wasn't like there too often for them when they were growing up.
Yeah, because he's had 5 wives too, something like that. And
yeah,
most of them are or at least based on what is written in the book, the Room to Dream autobiography of David Lynch, which everybody should read. But that his wives aren't like, they don't have like some kind of thing against him, but they all kind of understand that he loves to be in love with people, and he likes the way that other people like influence him and his like thoughts and ideas and his work. But he's like, he has to be an artist, and he like doesn't he has to sacrifice family to be an artist the way that he is.
Yeah.
Which
I definitely I definitely get that sense a lot, and it makes you wonder how. I mean, people do it all the time. They find a way to be not even an artist, but like an entrepreneur, like someone who really invests in something within themselves. You have to find a way somehow to have like, if you want a family, like a family life / relationship life with friends and your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and then also your artistic / entrepreneurial life.
Yeah.
But I see that in myself, because like I like being by myself a lot and doing things that I would want to do.
Yep.
And it's just even the thought of having a girlfriend where you just have to be on that other person's schedule somehow. It kind of just seems sort of like a weight. Like I don't even know if the lovey-dovey shit / just being in love stuff would be enough for me to dive into that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a weird balance, because I think I feel the same way, where you enjoy being around people and you like having the connections, and it's valuable and beneficial to you, and ultimately it'll be beneficial to your work because you have to experience people in life to have anything to say.
Yeah.
But also you want to be not with those people because you're like, I'd rather be in control of my own situation and doing things on my own terms.
That's why it's I think about this a lot. Did you watch the Iggy Pop and Jim Jarmusch interview?
No, but I skipped around trying to find that clip that you sent me with where he said he saw the space.
Did you find it?
Yeah.
Dude, that was so funny.
It was extra funny when I saw it in context and I realized that he was trying to describe the movie High Life, and he was like, I saw the space movie.
Yeah.
I actually just watched, what's the name of this bloody movie? It's a Claire Denis movie with Juliette Binoche, and she's...
the space one, or the one in space, or...
Not the space, I then watched the space movie.
But Jim Jarmusch said, he quoted some guy in that interview, I don't remember the guy, but the guy said that it said something along the lines of like, if there's no in, there's no out, where like you have to consume things in order to create things. Yeah. And I think about that a lot, especially with music. Like, man, I like to listen to new music to be like, oh, how does this person do things? Especially since when you start creating something that you aren't as familiar with, like music, at least for me personally, like music, you're like, oh, how does this person's guitar sound, or how do their drums sound, or how are they positioning their synth or bass guitar within the whole sound design?
And I think there's also an element of you need to like evolve as a person to continue making work that is interesting. So, you can't just be in a vacuum and continuously put out new and good stuff, because you have to like absorb some experiences to do that.
Well, and also you have to be which I kind of hesitate saying this because I don't know if I fully believe in it or not, but you have to make bad stuff.
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't like when I'm making something and I think it's personally bad. Sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I really like that." Like, and so it's weird when you say like, "Oh, you have to make bad stuff in order to make good stuff," because some people like the bad stuff. And so I think it's more just about you have to keep doing stuff that you find interesting, and being willing and open-minded to whatever sort of new thing that crosses your path.
Yeah, there's a Ira Glass quote that was shown to us in high school many times, where he said that you won't make anything good until you've made a lot of bad stuff, and that, you know, when you're starting, you may have good taste, and you know what you find interesting, or you know what's good, but you have to make a lot of bad stuff before anything's even remotely good. But you know it's bad, so you know that you have to keep going, you know?
Yeah. That actually kind of rings true for me, because I feel that me and you both have good taste in art, whether that be like visual art or music or film or whatever.
Yeah, we're the shit.
We are the shit, and that's why we're talking on the podcast, and you're not listeners.
Exactly. Start a podcast, Anchor FM. You can get it. Anyway.
And so, but kind of like making art, I think is something different, because you're sort of finding your own relationship with the world by making stuff, and that doesn't happen really too quickly, and so you have to keep going to find how you are relating to the world and how to express that somehow.
You know, my friend Enron Hubbard told me that he had been really into Lou Reed and Tom Waits and Bruce Springsteen and other like singer-songwriters like that, and that they were the influence because they were sort of an interesting cross-section between a musician and like an artist, because all of those guys have really long careers where they tried a lot of different things and they had a lot of different sounds. And so
who? Lou Reed and who else?
Tom Waits, Bruce Springsteen.
All three of those people I'm not that familiar with. It's only recently that I started listening to Tom Waits. And Bruce Springsteen, I've really only listened to the Nebraska album, and I think that album is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And so I haven't really listened to anything else by him. But Tom Waits, that guy's like kind of he sounds like he's like a real nut job for your head. He makes such interestingly weird music that I don't really know sometimes I don't understand his motivation for what is coming out. Like, I'm really
he's a mystery. There's a quote that I think about a lot that he said, which was, he said something like, within everybody's within every song there are other songs, and within every person's voice there are other voices, which makes a lot of sense for him, obviously, because he has many different voices that he sings in. And also that he finds a lot of stories within little things. You know, like he writes his songs a lot of times where there are like little details that are like kind of minimalist. You know, he's like, there are shoes by the door, and like that kind of like,
yeah,
there's a little story there.
I think that's part of the thing that I wonder about him with his storytelling, because sometimes he sings in a way and talks in a way that seems a bit cliche to me, which I don't know if it was cliche back then, but now the cliche part to me is like this sort of sad boy mentality. You know
so
what I
you're
mean?
talking about like his early music?
Yeah.
Because like the after the closing time type stuff. See, I really like that. I mean, that's what drew me to him. But then in the 80s, he got more experimental, which I think is more your speed. I don't know how much of his stuff you've listened to, but if you listen to...
I've listened to a Tom Waits... I've listened to This Is Tom Waits on Spotify, so it's just a bunch of different shit.
Oh, okay.
So I don't really know what it all was, but I got a sense of his storytelling and his range of voice type of thing.
I think you should listen to
I want to listen to the one where he's on a newspaper. I heard a few of those songs.
Heart Attack and Vine. That one's amazing.
Yeah, those are some cool songs. I think I heard Heart Attack and Vine.
Well, Heart Attack and Vine.
Yeah, dude, his voice. I wonder if he like purposely kind of just fucks up his own vocal cords to sing like that, because that sounds insane.
That one's even nothing compared to some of his later stuff. If you listen to like what's the album? I don't know. It's stuff from like the late 90s, the early 2000s. He really got gruff. It's pretty nuts. That stuff is virtually inaccessible sometimes.
He was gruff looking in The Dead Don't Die. He was dressed up as a fucking homeless person living in the woods eating squirrels.
Yeah.
Did you see that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Did you like it? What'd you think?
I thought it was fine. It was kind of more accessible than a lot of Jim Jarmusch's movies were, and obviously the cast is pretty cool.
Yeah. I love it. It's part of the reason why I like his movies a lot, because his cast of characters are unique. I like them.
Yeah. He
seems to be appreciated by well-known actors too, like Bill Murray, Adam Driver, and Tilda Swinton.
And the RZA and Tom Waits, obviously.
And Tom Waits, and what the hell's that guy's name?
Iggy Pop.
Iggy Pop. But I forgot about Iggy Pop. I was thinking of the guy in Reservoir Dogs, skinny dude.
Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi. Is that Buscemi or Buscemi or Buscemi?
I think it's Buscemi, but it's funnier. It's more fun to say Buscemi.
Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi.
He sounds like he would say it that way too. Hey, my name is Steve Buscemi. I have to go though because I'm supposed to call at 2.
Yeah.
And it's 1:57. But we did an hour and a half. Jesus.
But yeah, it was good. All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Do I just press X now?
Yeah.
Triplefour.
Later.